Good evening, YouTube. I decided after the last couple of videos I did apparently have generated a pretty decent amount of butt hurt among a few people. And there's a video even that I did on that subject. If you want to check it out, you'll understand what I mean. So I'm getting back to the basics here and back to some shotguns. And the video I want to do, I was asked this not that long ago, the difference between a Riot shotgun and a trench gun. Well, in the older days, probably say from World War II on to say even let's say the 80s, that was a pretty easy thing to tell the difference between a Riot shotgun and a trench shotgun. And it was pretty much the fact that trench guns were used by the military, and most, if not all, had bayonet mounts. The Winchesters, the Ithacas, even the oddball guns like the Stevens, the occasional Stevens 67s, the Stevens 620s, the 520s, they all had bayonet mounts, and so did the Winchesters, the Ithacas, so on and so forth. These days, those two things are kind of a little harder to tell the difference, especially with some of the more private guns and more law enforcement being more towards SWAT than it used to be. But the general definition is that a Riot shotgun is going to be more just simply a personal defense gun, law enforcement gun, 20-inch barrel, 18.5-inch barrel, so on and so forth. Now, the military guns, which they don't call them trench shotguns anymore, they're called combat shotguns. You still see them with bayonet mounts. For instance, the Mossberg 590A1 and CIENAN. Don't quote me on that, but that is an adaptation for an M16 underneath, or a Remington 870 for underneath an M16. That's a version of a new combat shotgun. Again, the Remington 870 Marine Corps, which does have a bayonet mount, as does the Mossberg 590A1. The other difference is the metal trigger guard. The military did not want the plastic trigger guard that was on the Mossberg 500, so they went there. The 590 has a metal trigger guard. And so on and so forth. But it's kind of a lot of nowadays, it's a very blurry line between the two. Most personal defense shotguns, if not all, with the exception again of the 590, are what would be considered a standard Riot shotgun. It's for personal defense or law enforcement. It doesn't matter what the stock is. And of course, the military combat version might be something that you, like a person, cannot own without having a Class 3 license, because you'll occasionally see like an 870 with a 12.5-inch barrel, which, unless you have a Class 3 license, you're not going to own that. Most people that have like civilian shotguns are not going to be decked out with every last little bit. They might be. They might have a pistol grip stock. They might have most of them are going to have the extended magazine. So they're going to look very much like most law enforcement shotguns now, which would again put them into the Riot shotgun category. And since you can own a Mossberg 590A1 with no problems, you can technically own a modern trench gun. Or, I mean, and you can still find used trench guns all over. But the older ones from World War II, from Vietnam, they're more of a collector's item now. Whereas the Riot guns, they're really not. They're still pretty much considered a standard, short-barreled shotgun, 20-inch barrel. I can go online and find a model 1897 or a model 12 Winchester with a 20-inch barrel, even a factory Riot barrel, and they wouldn't be called a Riot barrel. They were just a 20-inch barrel with an improved cylinder. A standard one of those, they're $500–600. A trench gun, a U.S. military marked trench gun, is going to be a lot more. 2, 3 times, 4 times the value of that gun. Same with even the Ithacas or anything else, especially if they're US marked. And of course they're going to have the bayonet mount, the bayonet lug on them. So between the two, there really isn't a great deal of difference nowadays other than just the semantics. Again, the bayonet lug. That's pretty much the big thing that still separates a military trench gun versus a riot gun. But the riot guns now don't look like they used to. I mean, give an example. This is what a lot of riot guns used to look like up until even 10, 15 years ago. This is the 870 Remington 12 gauge, 20-inch barrel, open, rifle sights, and wooden stock. I mean, most police shotguns would never have had a nicer stock than this, but they'd still be wood. If you look for if you find an Ithaca Deerslayer with a 20-inch barrel, a lot of those were just what they threw in a police car. They really were not a lot of difference. You didn't see them a lot with the extended magazine. Occasionally you'd see the DPS versions, but more often than not, you'd see the standard magazine, regular magazine tube on them. And the same with, some of the older, I've seen a couple of Stevens police guns. I've seen, I actually had a high standard Riot King, which was at one time a popular police gun, which was just a Flight King with a short barrel and an extended magazine tube. The same thing, wooden stock. But nowadays they're going to have a longer stock. They're going to have, or the synthetic stocks are going to have the magazine tubes. Everything's pretty much polymer now, but that's just the way it is. It's not even so much of, it's cheaper more than anything else. But that's your typical differences. So what to make of this? There's really not a lot of difference between the two. But just if you were looking for one or the other, especially with the older guns, that's all the difference is. So that's this video for now, folks. So that's the difference between pretty much the similarities between the riot gun and the trench gun or combat shotgun when it comes to which one of those you're looking at or looking for. Have a good night.